Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of Season 2 of the Rule 34 podcast. I'm your host, Jack, joined by my fellow co-host,
Dominic Casillo again. Hello, Jack.
Hello, Don. How have you been?
I have been pretty, okay, nothing really much has happened. Ever since last time we recorded. School, has been doing its thing. Everything else, in terms of work and stuff like that, has been pretty okay, I think. But yeah, nothing else much has really happened, so far, in terms of, anything intense, per se. Although there are some, like, worldly, stuff that is currently going on. But other than that, for me, nothing much happened. How about you, Jack? How have you been, my man?
Well, first off, I want to say that's very good to hear that you are doing all right and that for at least the current standpoint, things are going well for you. I'm doing all right. Holding up in school as much as I can,
Right.
Trying to just, if you would say, drift my way through life, at the current moment. I will say, and I will bring this up because it'll probably lead to maybe a future podcast episode, because we already discussed one of his albums on here. But I just very recently finished listening through the entire discography of Kanye West.
Interesting, bro.
I went from start to finish with the only albums I skipped were 808s and Heartbreak and Donda because I already listened to those in their entirety.
Right.
But never listened to The College Dropout, never listened to Late Registration, Graduation, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, Yeezus, The Life of Pablo, Ye. What was that? 7 albums, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I never listened to any of those. I maybe heard like a song or two off of them, obviously. But like I've never heard them in their entirety. Never really, basically just never really listened to Kanye at all,
Right.
The only Kanye I ever listened to was 808s and Heartbreak. And then when Donda dropped, because it was like, all right, let's see. People have been hyping it up, And, Donda was one of those things where when it dropped, and, that whole like press release, that he went on, of like the different like performances in stadiums, It was one of those things where you don't want to miss the hype and like the experience that people are going along with,
Yeah.
And it was like after that, I was just like, you know me, I'm a guy who loves music. I love all genres of music, and I'm willing to listen to just about anything. People come to me recommending me some of the most. I don't mean this in a bad way, but like outlandish type music,
Yeah.
And like I always listen to it, I give it a fair shot, and I'm the type of guy that would like, really get into it and let you know like what I liked about it, what I didn't, like it could be little things like I liked the vocals in this certain part, I didn't like the way this sounded, this, stuff like that. And so It's like, I'm someone who's always looking for new music, always excited to dive into the unknown, and so I was like, hey, with my only experience of Kanye West being his latest project and 808s and Heartbreak, let me just see what the rest of his discography was like. And I will say I thoroughly enjoyed the whole listen through. I may not have liked all the songs on every single album, but I definitely walked away with a lot more music in my playlist. I thoroughly enjoyed a lot of his music, especially My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. That album is everything people made it out to be. It's always regarded as one of his best albums, best work. You hear a lot of hype behind it. It's usually always everyone's number one pick for his best album, and yeah, it definitely lived up to my expectations. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I can say this now because I had to re-listen through to like 1 or 2 albums just to be sure, but there's not a single album that he has released solo wise that I haven't liked a single song off of.
Yeah. No, yeah, take time.
But, all right. So yeah, every album he's released, I've liked at least one song off of.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm still considering giving one of his albums a shot, even though I mean, I'm more than likely going to, but for the most part, those were the albums I listened to: College Dropout, Late Registration, Graduation, 808s, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, Yeezus, Life of Pablo, Ye, and Donda. Those 9 albums.
Interesting. I think if you want to dive even more, like a bit deeper into like each single individual song, I believe there's a video on YouTube that like ranks every single song from every single album in like a list of like 160. It's like around like 90 or like around 160 songs in total that he made throughout his entire career. I think you might want to check that out if you want to see every single song ranked per se.
Yeah, I get you. Yeah, but yeah, I bring it up because that's just something I have done. That's to give people a little dive into some of the stuff I do for fun or like as a hobby. Like I said, I just really love music and exploring new music. So I was like, hey, here's a really popular artist that people are always talking about. Let me just see, what are my thoughts on it.
Right.
I like to give all music a fair shot. As long as, the music isn't on some, like, really weird type stuff, I will always give music a chance, a good shot, I won't be prejudiced towards it, I won't hold any judgment towards it just because of what I hear from, like, other people saying,
Yeah.
Like, obviously, it's a thing of, like, if a lot of people are saying bad things about it, then maybe it's true, but, like, I'm the type of person that, like, especially when it comes to music, it's like, I'm going to determine whether I like it, not based off of what other people say, but what I say,
Alright.
And that's like the mindset I went into just listening. I was like, alright, well, heard a lot about Kanye, let's see what I think about it.
Interesting.
And I will say he definitely had a very interesting catalog, The one thing I said was that I don't think any album sounds like the previous or even any other one,
Right.
Just very different sounds throughout all of his catalog, so it makes it very unique. And like I said, just enjoyable to listen through. And that's really all I did recently, other than school. Like in my free time, I was just there, doing homework, working out, I just threw on any of the albums to like really listen to, really pay attention to while I did that stuff, and yeah, really great nonetheless.
Nice, man. That's good to hear. And like, do you know what was like the total runtime for the entire album? All the albums? My bad.
I don't know, but I can give you I can look them up real quickly if you can find a way to keep talking so the listeners of this podcast don't have to endure silence. But let's see. We'll start off with the College Dropout. Let's see, the College Dropout duration. Now, Dom, while I'm looking this up, what do you think is a rough estimate of how much it took me?
For the entire, of all the albums?
Yeah, like all together.
Discography. I feel like, well, honestly, I'm not too sure. Because some albums are, have more songs in terms of size, but each individual song must also be incorporated in terms of their length. I don't know. I'll be honest. I would give it, this is just, out of the blue, idea. Maybe like around, I don't know. Around like 5 to like 8 hours or something like that.
Interesting. All right. So, The College Dropout, his first album, was an hour and 40 minutes long.
Oh, yeah. I'm wrong there. All right.
His Late Registration, it's not giving me like in terms of hour and time. It says the length is 70 minutes and 25 seconds.
Oh, so right.
That is about what? Another like an hour and 10 minutes, right?
Right.
If I'm estimating that correctly, if I'm doing my calculations right. So far we're at what? Like 2 hours. We're close to 3 hours. We're at like 2 hours and 50, I think. So your estimation was 5 hours, and we're already halfway there to that.
Yeah.
So let's see. Graduation is next. Graduation duration. That was about 50 minutes. So that puts us at 3 hours and 40. So we're already inching towards 5 hours already.
Jeez.
Kanye West, 808s, and Heartbreak duration. I think this one was a bit shorter. Let's see. Same 50. So we're already like in the 4 hour category.
Right.
All right, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. This one was actually, I think this one is going to be the one that puts it over 5 hours because I'm pretty sure this was like a really long album. It had really long songs, especially it had Runaway on there. Don't forget Runaway is like a 9-minute song because it has just that 2 minute like interlude or like outro of him, in autotune. 68 minutes and 39 seconds. So an hour and 8, a bit shorter than I thought it was, but so that definitely puts it over 5 hours, and I think that's at the 6 hour mark already. Next is Jesus. So the Jesus duration was 40 minutes. So we're reaching towards 7. Next we have The Life of Pablo. This one had about 20 songs on it. Yeah, it's a 66 minutes. So, Kanye West, Yay is the last one. Because, like I said, subtract the 50 minutes from 808s and Heartbreak. Because, like I said, I had already listened to it. So, got to subtract that because I didn't do a full listen through.
Right.
Yay, since it was only 7 songs, is 23 minutes. So, rough estimates, we have an hour and 40, an hour and 10. So that's 2 hours 50. Then you add 50 minutes on top of that, and that's 3 hours 40. Plus another 50. That is 4 hours and 30, I think. So 4.5. Then a whole hour. That's 5.5 plus 8. So 5:38. Plus another 40. That's about 6:10. Then another hour. That's 7. Then the 6 minutes. So that's like 7 hours and 6 minutes. And then plus the 23. So that took about 7.5 hours to just fully listen through the discography of Kanye West. That disregarding Donda and 808s.
Wow, bro.
So yeah, it took about, I want to say 7.5 hours, and obviously it wasn't in one sitting, but there was times where I listened to multiple albums one after the other,
Right.
But so yeah, that's how long it took, and that's not even taking into account having to re-listen through like a couple albums just to make sure, did I like this song? Did I like, like what songs am I liking off of it? And like I'm definitely gonna add to my playlist,
Right.
Because my listening experiences was similar to Donda, as we discussed in our review of it earlier, later in the year, last year, where, it took me multiple listens to decide if I truly like certain songs,
Right.
But so, yeah, a rough estimate, like throughout, like, I want to say, I think it was only 4 days. Now that I'm thinking about it, through 4 days, it took 7 hours in total runtime to listen through everything.
Jeez.
Really?
And like, my bad. What were you saying?
I was just gonna say, really good though. It was like a really good experience. What you were saying?
No, I was gonna say, like, out of every single song you just heard, what do you think was your most disliked song, but yet your most liked song that you liked out of all of them?
So, I mean, I think my most dislike would probably, I can't name you a specific one, but it'd probably be like just, I don't know, like maybe it's like a certain song like off of I don't know, I didn't enjoy Yeezus that much, I didn't like too many songs off of that, I will say. I mean, it wasn't a thing that I didn't like them, but it was just kind of like, it was like, okay, it was one of those albums where it was like, it was enjoyable to listen to. But there wasn't much that I liked from it, like, it was an enjoyable first listen, but there was really nothing much to it,
Yeah. It's not like a, how would you say, like a a song that was meant to be repeated over and over again through the radio, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. Like it just wasn't something I saw myself adding to up my playlist with a couple of those songs off that album.
Yeah, I gotcha.
So I'll give you my favorite songs off of each album, and then I'll tell you what my favorite Kanye one is of all time after listening to his entire discography. So off the College Dropout, my favorite was Jesus Walks. It's a pretty great song. I like the message in it and everything.
Right.
And I really like a lot of the lyrics that Kanye has in there. Off of Late Registration, it's probably Diamonds from Sierra Leone. That was a really good one. Either that or Touch the Sky. Right. Off of Graduation, it's I Wonder. Really great song. It really has a lot of value to me. Especially in its message. I'm going to skip 808s and Heartbreak real quick because you'll see why later.
Right.
My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. I'm going to say Runaway now, but it's really tied with Blame Game because they both just have great sounds to them, great messages to them. I really love both songs. Off of Jesus, it's probably On Sight. The Life of Pablo, my favorite off of there. I think it's No More Parties in LA. Him and Kendrick just going back and forth was really good. Off of Ye, it's probably Ghost Town. And off of Donda, it's probably Believe What I Say, the one with the Lauryn Hill sample.
Yeah.
Really great. And I skip 808s because my favorite song on 808s is probably my favorite Kanye song of all time, and that is Street Lights. The overall emotion on the track, the vocals, the background vocals, the instrumentals, everything just adds to it, and it's just a really great song. It has a ton of emotional weight, and I really enjoy it a lot. It has such significant value to my life. I really enjoy that song, and it helps me get through a lot of times, because it's really a great song, and the lyrics, I know my destination, but I'm just not there yet, I really love it because it's you want to say it almost encapsulates life, where it's a lot of us don't know why we're here, don't know what our purpose is, but we're just trying to get there, we know we have a destination, but we just know we're not there yet,
Yeah, I completely agree, yeah.
But yeah, those were definitely my favorites, and that's my all-time favorite one,
Man, yeah, that's pretty good, man.
Yeah, it felt really good to listen to because it felt like in a sense, it was like I set a goal for myself and I achieved it, and what really made it even more was that I just would have never known had I not taken that leap,
Yeah, I completely agree. And say, are there any other artists that you're planning to like listen to the entire discography of, aside from Kanye, obviously?
I think I have a couple. It's a bit more tough because with a lot of the reason Kanye was so easy is because you hear a lot of people talking about it,
right?
And so it's just interesting to hear that, and you kind of have a sense of direction with Kanye, whereas a lot of other artists, it's it's difficult to tell what their direction is going to be from album to album.
Yeah.
I do know I want to give Drake a shot because, as we know, we had discussed the potential of reviewing his recent album, but as the joke I made was that I fell asleep while listening to it, so I didn't think I was going to be the best person to judge it, But
right.
I do want to see what the hype is there because he's one of the most streamed artists,
Right.
I do love Evanescence, but I feel like I haven't listened to their entire discography. That's a 2000s rock band, by the way. And
yeah.
I've heard a lot from them, but again, similar to Evanescence, I can't say I've listened fully through to their discography, but I want to give Outkast a shot,
Yeah.
But those are the three main ones that I think I have next in mind.
I like that.
And
have you heard? My bad. But have you heard Tyler the Creator's entire discography already?
I have not, and you know, I'll elaborate further. 25 minutes left. Let's kind of talk about
Yeah.
our topic today. And the only reason I'm delaying the Tyler the Creator thing is because he appears on what our topic is, and I have a bit of a controversial take.
Interesting.
But so, talking a lot about music this episode, and I brought up us reviewing Donda earlier in the year, and so similarly, on my birthday, The Weeknd came out with his Dawn FM album, and I brought it up, and then the other day I was thinking, I'm like, hey, we haven't done any music reviews, since Donda. We've reviewed like a song, I think it was Juice WRLD's Already Dead, but we haven't had a chance to like review a full album, other than our top 10 albums.
Yeah.
And so I proposed the idea to Dom, and he was like, all right, I'll give it a listen. I told him, it's a pretty short album compared to what we get nowadays from a lot of artists. It was only an hour long, and honestly, watching the live stream when he was performing the music and listening to the album itself on its own, it didn't actually even feel that long. But getting ahead of ourselves, first impressions, what did you think of The Weeknd's album, Dom? Or actually, first, before we get it, let me ask you this. Have you ever listened to a Weeknd album before?
I personally have never listened to an entire Weeknd album, although I have heard like a lot of like the mainstream songs per se that he usually plays from each album, if that makes sense. Some songs like the mainstream ones, that everyone hears on the radio, I've heard, but I've never listened to an entire discography or just like the entire album from The Weeknd himself. Right. I feel like I should be guilty of that because I'm pretty sure I think I might be missing out on some pretty good songs. But I'm not sure. I like The Weeknd, but I'm not too sure per se. It's like a bit of a weird feeling for me just hearing to The Weeknd. I should be wanting to like him because I know that he likes to play his music around the synth wave, if that makes sense. Like, yeah. How would you say, like the 80s, 90s synth wave. Because I know he collaborated with music with Kavinsky, which is like another like synthwave pop artist.
Yeah.
But I myself have never heard an entire album, just like just the mainstream songs of it. But this time, with Dawn FM, I've heard the entire bit.
Yeah, and honestly, I want to say there's never a better time to have shown you a full album because. Maybe, I don't know, I guess we'll get into our first impressions, but this one felt really old school in that sense. He had a lot of old school sound to it.
I agree.
But so, first impressions from, someone like you who's never listened, or never, like, fully listened,
I think for me, I personally liked it, only because it definitely dove back into the old school, like, disco type music with the synthwave stuff, and like in general, like the majority of the songs are it's about relationships. It's about him dealing with relationships. There's like one specific song about a woman that's trying to cheat on his husband with The Weeknd, but The Weeknd rejects that. And there's other songs mostly just talking about how would you say to not basically destroy a relationship, to break his heart. Like I'm pretty sure that's like one of the songs literally named "Don't Break My Heart." Mm-hmm. But in general, the entire discography is it's pretty good. I'm not gonna lie, especially this one song that I'm not gonna list out yet. But there's this one song that I really enjoyed, only because it actually took a huge sample from a Japanese city pop artist.
Yep.
From, like back in the 80s, and like, oh my god, hearing it was like an absolute breath fresh of air, man.
Yeah, that was something a lot of people caught as well. My first impressions, I was enjoying it thoroughly. To open up a bit. As Dom knows, a pretty tough situation in life was happening around that time. And so as I worded it before, like I said about this album, when it first dropped, it was It was a nice
Well,
little break for me,
yeah,
It provided a nice little break. It allowed me to just enjoy myself a bit and away from what was happening in life. But it was a very fun listen through, and you know, it's the typical weekend. As you mentioned, singing about relationships. Also, in a lot of songs, being real toxic. Uh, it's really classic him. Where he goes from songs where he's singing about wanting someone. But then there's certain songs where he's specifically avoiding their love, and he's going after the other highs of life.
yeah,
And a lot of these songs do build off of his previous work of After Hours, his album from 2020. But it's like a lot of those songs demonstrate that he's obsessed with a lot of the other highs in life, and so he's not settling down for a relationship. But then he has those songs where he does.
right.
And another thing to mention is Jim Carrey's narration throughout the album.
Oh yeah. So for those who don't know, there's a specific song where the entire song is just an entire narration.
Yeah.
If I'm not incorrect, right? Yeah. There's this one song is just the entire narration of a story.
Yeah,
Right.
so getting ahead, not necessarily ahead of our discussion, but ahead to like what I want to talk about. The main theme of the album is again based off its name, Dawn FM. It's like a radio station, an old radio station. Is like the whole theme of the album is like you're listening to a radio station, and Jim Carrey's the like host of that radio station.
Yeah.
And so he's seen throughout the album, there, like Dom said, there's a track where it's specifically him narrating, he comes in on the outro of a couple songs, to like give a short message, and it all ties into the whole theme. And speaking of tying things in, Dom, what did you think about some of the transitions on this album from song to song?
The transitions, they were something. Especially if you play the song like right back to back, right next to each other, they fit in so good.
Yeah, like it's a bit long, but the transition from going to "How Do I Make You Love Me" to "Take My Breath," that was a really good transition. And some of the transitions from the narration to the next song really fit in well as well.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah, it's the little things like those transitions are really good. Very few features. What did you think about the features?
The specific flagship songs, I feel like for me, I'm not too sure. I'll be honest. I really like a lot of the features of the songs, but we have Gasoline and what was it? Out of Time and something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I for some reason don't feel like they're gonna be. They're gonna have that form of repetition. The song that you want to constantly keep on repeating back again over and over throughout the years. Except for Out of Time, only because that's like a personal, including the sample. That's just a personal thing to me. But I feel like the majority of the songs have very similar synthwave aesthetics towards the background samples, the background instrumentals per se. But the features themselves, like the main songs that you're meant to, you're going to be hearing over the radio in general. I feel like the stories themselves in the background, if you do pay attention to them, will definitely be powerful. But like the songs themselves per se, in a whole general aspect, I think personally to me are going to be well liked, but not going to be how would you say
mainstream.
Like mainstream. It is already mainstream at the moment, but I don't feel like it's going to be. The song of the decade or the song of the year that everyone's gonna come back towards like next year and you're like, wow, I really like this album. And there's this one really song I really like.
I get this way of thinking because I've encountered a ton of people since this album was dropped. Obviously, it's probably how would you say? What's the word for it? Recency bias, But I thoroughly have enjoyed this and can't stop playing it, But what I've told people, because it's something that is common in our generation today of music, and I don't know why it's become such a thing, but the moment an album or a song drops, literally the moment people finish it, they're already giving opinions, And that's not to say they're wrong, but they're like, oh, it's like the common thing all over social media. It's mid. And those people aren't wrong, but they're not wrong in thinking that if that's their opinion, then sure. But my thing is, especially recently, I saw someone else say this about it too. Is that like when they were talking about the like power of nostalgia, The only reason a lot of people hold or look at some certain songs as really good is because of the memories they created with that song or album, Like, think about it. Everyone looks back to 2016 as if it was this golden age, But you and I know personally, living in 2016, people did not enjoy that year. And it's only this fact that people are looking back with nostalgia that they're making it out to be something bigger than it was,
True.
2016 really was a terrible year when you look back on it, and people didn't enjoy living in it, but then the power of nostalgia is getting to them. And what the guy that I was watching presented was, so many people are not making those memories with these new albums or attempting to, and so that's why immediately they're straightforward going and not enjoying it or trying to give opinions right out the wazoo. It's like,
true.
Sit down and really listen to it, really try and form memories to it. You want to know why you have great memory or why you really enjoy a lot of maybe the Weeknd's old albums, because you created memories with it. You have certain memories tied to it. You remember a lot of this. You think 2016 was so great because you remember all the memories you made to great songs that came out that year, even though the times around you were terrible,
Yeah. Right.
And so similarly, what I've told people is, you're not wrong to think, if you don't like this album, sure, you're obviously valid in your opinions. But the one thing I present to people is to just give it time,
Right.
Let it sit with you. Maybe come back to it a few months later. Maybe come back to it even a year later, and just see how it sits with you even then, Let it sit with you, maybe let yourself create memories with it. Because, the memories I have with it right now are already good, and that's already affecting my perception of the album,
Yeah.
But that's one thing I suggest to people, is to really let it sit with them, because, it's something that, it's not necessarily a bad thing that, if you listen to it over and over, it gets better, like those things of like, it gets better with every listen, That's kind of how I feel with this album, where it's like, the more you listen to it, the more you're going to pick up on like these little things in it that will overall improve its experience to you.
Right.
And, right off the bat, I can tell you some of my favorite songs were Out of Time, Sacrifice. I really enjoyed it. I don't know what it is about that song, but it was really great. Best Friends was a good song. Less Than Zero was a good song. There's a ton of good songs here. In the deluxe version, he included this song, even though he released it kind of as a single. And, I don't think it really... if you listen to it, I don't know if you can find a place on this album to fit it, but in the deluxe version he did, Moth to a Flame was a really great song. And I really liked the story in it, But
right.
What about like... So we know Jim Carrey was on it. Quincy Jones was on it for like an interlude where he was like, giving a narration / story. But what did you think about Tyler, the Creator, and Lil Wayne's features on this album?
I feel like for this song, some people had a bit of a controversial take with it. Personally, I'm not sure how to say it, but I feel like Tyler, the Creator, is a bit of a... He enforces caution onto the listener or onto the Weeknd, if that makes sense. You know what I'm saying? Once he starts, I believe he says, "You're gonna sign this prenup 3 times."
Yeah.
Or like prenup. I'm not sure. In order to say that you have to protect what belongs to you, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that makes sense, but basically saying that I'm not sure how to say it, but I think what Tyler, the Creator's emotional story that he's trying to implement onto the song is basically, if you do decide to go on with your love interest, you have to be able to write out the emotions. If that makes sense. That makes sense. I'm not sure that makes sense. I'm probably making out sense, but well, basically, the entire story with Tyler the Creator and Lil Wayne. I think I'm not too sure. It's like mid again for me. I didn't like it. I didn't hate it. The overall story is, just saying that if you're gonna go along with it, because pretty much you can't stop love, you're gonna have to go along with the emotional ride, like a roller coaster per se, in order to because that's how it is.
Yeah, I get you, and similarly, I feel like it's controversial because when I was looking at people's reviews, they really enjoyed it, but I didn't enjoy Lil Wayne's feature all that too much, And similarly,
Right.
like how you were saying with Tyler the Creator, it's like, I don't know, I felt like it was too short to have added much to the song. He obviously added story elements into it with his lyrics and stuff, but it wasn't enough, and I don't know, I guess it was just too short. In my sense, like I know a lot of people said it was short, but like I don't know, the two of them didn't really fit the overall vibe and like tone of the album. Like, and the thing is, it's like I can't really tell you who else I would have picked to put on this, but like I don't know, like these two features kind of just didn't fit to me.
Right.
Like I don't know what it was. Like I probably could do without the two features. Like you said, they weren't bad, but also they weren't really the greatest features,
Yeah, I agree. I think for me, it's mostly. I understand that you specifically look out like for the specific parts that are meant to match together, but I think for me, I'm probably wrong. My bad. I'm sorry, but I think for me, I just try to space out per se. And in terms of spacing, I try to blend all the music to all of the the voices that are playing in this and the instrumentals that are playing, and I try to like connect the pieces per se. Sure, yeah, I definitely kind of agree with you that Lil Wayne was a little bit off, but I think for me, while I was listening to the song, I kind of just spaced out a bit, and I was able to like just kind of enjoy it. Although at some point, as I was just listening to the song, I did like hear, I guess, mentally feel it felt off. The song felt different, but I don't know. I don't know. I think for me it was a bit of a weird combination of music that for me kind of felt right, but it didn't feel right. If that makes sense.
I get you. Yeah, it's probably one of those things like the more you listen to it, the more you'll get used to it, and like something will click right away. Because that's another thing I forgot to mention with Kanye was that like the music wasn't automatically clicking with me. It took a couple of listen throughs for some things to get it to click with me,
Right.
And then, what do you think about the theme of the album? I briefly mentioned earlier, it being the main theme, like on surface level, it's the main theme of it being a radio station, But like the deeper level, like going deeper into it, like The Weeknd himself has hinted that it's the start of a new trilogy because, for those who don't know, the way he started off, he had these 3 mixtapes, and they all kind of tied into each other. Then when he released this album it was a compilation of the 3, they were 3 mixtapes, but then he put them all together on one album called Trilogy,
Right.
And they all, told a story throughout the 3 of them. They were all kind of like tied together somewhat, and that's what he started off with, And so he hinted to the people that you're listening to a new trilogy, and so the connection made is that, in his 2020 album After Hours, like at the very end of it, you like through the music you can tell that The Weeknd dies.
Right.
And so Dawn FM is this continuation from that, and it's supposed to symbolize purgatory in the sense that he's waiting on whether he's going to go to heaven or hell. Waiting to go to the afterlife, which is presumed to be the 3rd album after this,
Right.
And essentially, Dawn FM, being a radio station, is supposed to symbolize purgatory in the imagery of being stuck in traffic listening to a radio station. As you wait to get to the afterlife,
Yeah. I feel like that one of the songs like heavily emphasizes on this, especially with Phantom Regret. I think the song mostly speaks about just waiting in a dark tunnel, and then you being guided towards the light. You know?
Yeah.
It sounds nice and soothing, kind of, but I think what the dark tunnel is, it's the purgatory, but at some point, everyone who's jammed in this dark tunnel will eventually reach death or the light per se. And I think what you said there is mostly emphasized in Phantom Regret, but that's just my take. That's just my take.
Yeah, and Jim Carrey even hints at, I think at the end of Out of Time, he's like, or like at the very start, he's like, listen to this commercial free of Dawn FM, and then on Out of Time, he mentions you only have 30 minutes left, so enjoy your time on Dawn FM, kind of symbolizing that, hey, you're still stuck in purgatory, but your time's coming soon on whether, you go to heaven or hell, whether you go to the afterlife,
Yeah.
So, the overall theme, I thought it was pretty clever, to disguise purgatory as a radio station, and being stuck in traffic listening to it,
Yeah.
And so, I don't know, I just thought that was a really cool, like, overall theme to it, and, it really is kind of cool that from one album to the other, he's continuing that. It's showing the importance of sequencing your albums, Like,
right.
This album is a follow-up to the previous one, and, it almost adds sort of to it in that, you're like, obviously for some people, they just like listening to just music on, face value. Nothing wrong with that, listening to music just to enjoy the music, But I'm an analytical guy, I love, looking at the little bits and pieces of it, and so it's just cool to see that there's a story being told here, and, you just got to really look deep into it, look at the imagery being told throughout these songs.
Yeah, I agree, yeah.
Really, really cool album. I really enjoyed it. What's your overall rating for it, Dom?
I think I'll give it an 8 out of 10. Definitely because of the synth wave and that one Out of Time, obviously. But for me, since I really love like the old school 80s music, but the actual story behind it is also like really it's really deep, and it's kind of dark too. I'll definitely give it an 8 out of 10 because of it.
I will give it a 9 out of 10. I thoroughly enjoyed this album as well. Great storytelling. Excited to see what's in the future. Out of Time is a certified hood classic. And we'll see what happens at the end of the year when we do our list. But I can tell you right now, for me, I will be pushing the Dawn FM Album of the Year agenda. And it's funny because we're only 19 days into the new year.
That's pretty crazy. But that's good to hear, Jack.
Excited to see what more music comes in the future, and who knows, depending on what albums release and, what happens throughout this year, maybe we'll do a couple more of these, where album drops, we'll listen to it, give our review, and it helps in our lead up and our discussion at the end of the year, where we can look back at all the different albums we've reviewed in the year and see which ones made the list and which ones didn't. Yeah. With that being said, though, I've been your host, Jack, joined by my fellow co-hosts,
Dominic Castillo.
I want to thank you all for joining us for another episode of Season 2 of the Rule 34 podcast. As always, if it exists, we have an opinion on it. Thank you, and we'll catch y'all in the next episode.